And that journey I had of 2 years working there, I thought I'd just get my career back on track and I'd work out all the time because that was really important to me. And really it was just a journey of realizing that I got those things. I was able to do exactly what I wanted, but Dustin, I was miserable.
You're listening to the 7-Figure Leap podcast. We're here to leverage rich relationships and smart strategies to take your business to the next level. Here's your host, Dustin Rieckman.
Welcome back to the 7-Figure Leap. I'm really excited today for many reasons. One of which is this is, I think, the third consecutive Nick that I've interviewed on the show, which I don't know how many podcasts really can have that claim to fame. So I met Nick Davies through another relationship, which, you know, is a pretty common theme around here. So I met a guy named Matt Drinkhahn, who after I was a guest on his podcast, we became friends. I joined Front Row Dads. He joined my accelerator program. And then at some point along the way, he introduced me to Nick because Nick and he both work at a company called ProAdvisor, a coaching company that Nick will tell us all about. And so as Nick starts to talk here in a second, well, you're going to realize he's probably got the most beautiful accent of anyone I've interviewed as well. So no pressure, Nick. But today, this relationship has really deepened. He went through my accelerator program. We hung out in person in Orlando back in January because Nick is now part of our 7-Figure Leap mastermind group. So get to see Nick on almost a weekly basis. He is a real gift to me and to the group, and I'm really excited to share him here with the audience. So Nick Davies, you want to just give a quick introduction to yourself and let us know what you're up to nowadays?
Wow, man. Well, that's a nice intro. I appreciate that. And yeah, I can't believe it's January when we were down in Orlando. And as we record this, almost May, which is wild. But yeah, absolutely.
Been quite a whirlwind of 2024. How's it been for you?
Yeah, whirlwind for sure. And very exciting. I was the most excited I've been business-wise for a long time, and you're a big part of that. So I appreciate you for that. And as you said, lots of connections, relationships, that's what it's all about. And, it's very clear for me now that what I do is help financial advisors. And so I work with high-level financial advisors on their way to becoming 7-figure impacting advisors. And the clear piece of who I work with and how I help the most is that they want to have a thriving business, but don't want to impact their time with their family or sacrifice their health. And I get so passionate about that, Dustin, because it's such a thing that can hold people back. Like, they don't really strive for what they want to get in business because they push and realize that it's impacting their relationships, their most important relationships in their life. And they start to really then stop pushing so hard in business and ultimately don't get what they want in business. And they can bring some of that resentment to those relationships as well. So it's a very dangerous thing to think about. But yeah, that's what I am passionate about doing now, working with advisors in that manner. And I also had, previous to that, 20 years experience working in finance for big banks all over the world.
Yes. So that's, and so if you're a financial advisor, you really hit the jackpot today, but really everything that Nick teaches is applicable to other industries. He just has this, deep passion and history in finance. And we're going to get into mindset work and sabbaticals and all kinds of unique topics today that I think are really going to serve anyone who's going through a similar entrepreneurial journey. Nick, what I love to do is kind of go back a little bit, kind of dig into a bit of your history and your entrepreneurial journey, just to start to paint a picture and really unpack why you're sitting here today with this very specialized expertise and passion and coaching work that you do. So you can go back to, I'm assuming, across the pond, or you can talk about when you got to the U.S. or when you left corporate, wherever you think is most appropriate, when you felt like you had a real inflection point that started to put you in the trajectory of doing the work that you now do.
Couple of places I'd like to jump to quickly before I dive into that, for sure. So yeah, back across the pond, I suppose I fell into banking right out of high school. So I spent a lot of time doing that, but I started really young, and it was more a case of I just fell into doing that, and it was pretty rewarding. I was pretty good at it. It played well, but it was never really a choice. And I went traveling back in 2008, 2009 when that stuff was happening then, and then came back to London and wanted a job anywhere else in the world that wasn't London. And I found myself living and working in the Philippines, working for a big bank in the Philippines. And so the 2 years that I spent there were a very, very valuable time. And I suppose what I draw everyone's attention to as a start point here is like how important environment is as an indicator of change, whatever that might be. Big, huge things, small little things, creating your own environment. And that journey I had of 2 years working there, I thought I'd just get my career back on track and I'd work out all the time because that was really important to me. And really it was just a journey of realizing that I got those things. I was able to do exactly what I wanted, but Dustin, I was miserable, really miserable. Like I realized how important it was. Human connection, so important. And it sounds silly to say it now, but that's how that was the realization. And that's when I really started my personal development journey. I started asking myself questions like, what is success? What is happiness? What do I really want? And at the time, the best I could come up with was if I could have it any way I wanted it, what would I want? So when I just got back from like a stag do, a bachelor party in Vegas, I was like, well, that was really fun. Okay, if I could have it any way I wanted to have it, I would go to Las Vegas with my friends. And well, that won't work because I'd be like dead in 3 months. So that is
and broke.
That's off the table. Yeah, that won't work. But it was wild because that was the best I could do. It was the best I could do as an actual entry point to what sustainable fulfillment and happiness was. But that's really what started me on my journey to go, there's got to be something. Like there's got to be a way of figuring out what this life thing is. And I was in my mid-20s at the time, and I knew I wanted to live in America. Like, I knew that was clear for me. I didn't really know why, especially at the time. And so for that was really the genesis of starting to read some books, which created some. I always think of it like this, like some scaffolding in my mind. Like all the thoughts were there, but I had no way to put them. I didn't know what to access. It was all scattered. And I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, cover to cover, and then cover to cover again. And it was just, I need this just now. I know where to put things. Like it was all there in the first place. But yeah, that was really the start of. Really, I can trace the line from then until here for sure.
That's awesome. So, yeah, I don't know if I realized the Philippine part of this journey. I'm sure you told me at some point, but it didn't really stick. But that is really instrumental. Like you're there, You're like, hey, I can just like focus on myself and work out and make money, and then you realize that it actually wasn't fulfilling at all. And so, and then you felt this draw to America. And so, yeah, like what got you to America? When does the family start to enter the picture? I'd love to hear kind of where these pieces, so you got the scaffolding and you kind of got a framework now for where all these learnings and experiences belong in yourself. And then like, it sounds like there's a lot more refinement that happens after that point.
Most certainly. And I'd like to share a mindset shift in that piece as well, because when I was in the Philippines, I had a boss, which was, he was great. He was originally from India. He spent a lot of time, in a lot of different places. So he was a great leader. And I said to him, I don't want to be here. I want to be anywhere else. I want to be in America, but I'm open to being anywhere else. And so at that point, I want to, because here's the thing with mindset, Dustin. Oftentimes people know that what we believe and what our mindset is really shapes and controls our lives. But it's often so esoteric. And what I love to do is make it real. And so this is what it was, this is what it is. In my mindset, up until that point, I was always thinking I'd be the one that will take the opportunity, because I'd seen lots of people in my career up to that point go, I won't do that, I can't do that, too much change is going to hurt me, I'm not doing that. I'd be always the guy with a hand up going, yeah, I'll do that, like that sounds fine. And so I thought, if I keep following opportunities and make myself available for everyone, I'll be successful. And that point, which I flipped it over, because what I said to my boss at the time, I said, I'd do anything. And I thought that by saying that to him, I was making it easier for him. Meaning like, oh, I haven't got this, have this specific thing, so I've got to go and find something which I don't know where it is. I said I'd do anything. But actually what I was actually doing was making it much more difficult, because I was asking him to choose.
Yes.
This took me a long time to figure out.
It's so analogous to business building and marketing and so many other things, right? Like,
yes,
we always talk about, if you want to be super referral, be super specific in who you serve and how you serve them, because that unlocks the ability to make you referable. But yeah, the same thing's true for your own, in this case, employee-employer relationship. Like if you went to him and said, I really want this, that empowers him to help you get it. Whereas you're just like, I'll do anything. It's like, I can't really, what do I do with that? Right.
Exactly, man. And that's why I want to mention it, because it really flows through. And so he was smart. He said to me, well, give me 3 locations and 3 types of jobs that you want.
Nice.
And he allowed me to start to think through it better to get there. But yes, I went from thinking about everything up to that point was I'll take the best opportunity. I'll do the thing no one else wants to do. And it switched to, this is what I want to create. This is what I want to go and do, or it started to do. So that's the mindset of like, I'll take opportunities versus I want to go create. And so if I fast forward a little bit, I got the move to America. I got the move to Jacksonville, Florida, where I met my beautiful wife. And to celebrate, that's something I shared with you as well, that we just had our vows renewed for almost 10 years, wedding anniversary, which just happened to be in Vegas. We got married in Vegas originally, so that was awesome.
Congratulations. That's a milestone for sure.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so we lived in Florida for a long time and moved to New York, worked on Wall Street. And if I think about how that mindset started to flick around, as I was on Wall Street, I had this other moment where it was like a Tuesday afternoon. We were married. Our first daughter was a baby at the time, and I was just wandering around Wall Street, and went back into the building, and I was like, oh, I don't want to be. And it was like a Tuesday afternoon or something. I'm thinking, I just want to go home. I just want to get this done. I want to get it over with. And there's a realization that, like, this is my life. Why can't a Tuesday afternoon be better than a Friday afternoon? Because that's how it was for me at the time. And it's like, well, and up until that point, I started to like search and think about what I wanted to do. And the prevailing thought in my mind was like, go find your purpose. Go find your purpose. And that I just couldn't do anything with, Dustin. What the switch was for me was to start thinking about, rather than finding, it's creating. And so for me, that's the other side of that equation. It was like, take the opportunities, now go create the person that you want to be, or create the opportunities. And that is such a big, it's a huge mindset shift for me on my journey through entrepreneurship, because that was the moment I was like, hey, what do I want to do? Or what do I love to do? And get clear, specific, again, there it is, around what is it I liked about 20 years working in banking. It was people. It was the connection. It was the relationship. It was not, how can I teach them on a technical skill? It's like, well, if 2 people know the same technical skill, why is one person flowing through it with ease and gets the result, and another person is crashing and banging on the phone, maybe gets the result in the end, but the experience is so crazy? What is it that people get their leverage from? Now, what is people's motive for action? And that piece is really the piece that I love to do, and that's how I got into coaching. That's why I thought about coaching originally, and that's what really started my journey to where I am now.
That's awesome. So through a lot of struggle and iteration and finding resources and books and just life experience and moving, you really dialed it down to like, the thing I love to do is help people. And the people that, you were around happen to be in finance. So you also picked up a lot of the in that environment, the language they use, the culture, and like you understood them at a deeper level. So at what point does coaching enter your life? Do you get coached first, or do you like just become a coach without ever being coached? Like, when did the coaching switch happen? Because at some point you left corporate and became a coach, and I'm sure there's some transition in that process.
Yeah, and if we talk about mindset again and beliefs, if you roll all the mindsets and beliefs up into if you roll them all up, they become your identity, and it's like everything unpacks. There's lots of beliefs inside your identity, of course. And I think about that journey, how impactful it was for my identity, but also my wife's identity, and who she thought I was through that, and how that changes. That's a big piece of it as well. But so for me, it was looking at what I love to do, and so I spent all my time in one-on-ones with people on my team or people outside of my team, helping them break through, get to the next place. So okay, it seems like this coaching thing. I was coaching before I even knew what it was. I wouldn't call it. And then I went out, researched, like just did it my own, listened to a bunch of podcasts, got out there, and was listening to a lot of Tim Ferriss and other people in that kind of place at that time. And I was listening to a lot of Tony Robbins, and on one of the Tony Robbins things I was listening to, I saw was like, oh, apply here to be a coach. It's like, if I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to go straight to the top. Why not?
Love it.
On a whim, because I didn't tell my wife I was going to do it, because I thought, well, nothing's going to happen, except they replied. And then I went through a period of and this coaches academy I went through, Dustin, was they had They do it once a year or so, and they had like 400 people apply. I think they did 80 phone interviews, and they invited 40 to join the first month of this 3-month Coaches Academy. And then they had 42 first month, that's right. And then the second month, they invited 35 back. The third month, they invited 27 back, and then they finally hired 18. And I was privileged to be one of those people. And I was a Tony Robbins coach for a number of years. And that transition where like we moved to North Carolina, moved out of the corporate world, it was a lot because it was basically stopping all of that stuff, everything I've known for the last 20 years. We got young child, and we've moved to a new state, and that was a lot all at once. But that was the leap that I made, for sure. Into that
obviously there's parts of your identity as a husband and things like that don't change, but that's a pretty major identity shift, right? Like now you're not a finance guy, you're not on Wall Street.
Right.
Now you're a husband, a dad. You live in North Carolina, all the way from London via the Philippines, and now you're a Tony Robbins coach. So, like, what a crazy whirlwind and how powerful. So, like, give us just like idea of when did you become a Tony Robbins coach, and then from there to what you're doing now. Like, just give us a snapshot of that part of your life.
Yeah, and I should mention as well that I met my wife in banking. She's still in banking as well, so with that identity tied together, and so that was a big thing to go through, for sure. So there was a transitional period, but I'm out for full-time the corporate world. I was doing some consulting in the corporate world. I was Tony Robbins coaching, and then I found a coaching organization you mentioned earlier, and I was doing 3 things at once. Essentially, I was doing 3 things at once, and with Tony Robbins, it was great because I was coaching people with lots and lots of reps, like repetitions of mother of skill, to quote Tony. But I really wanted to have a way where I could build my own business, and that was a great experience. But I wanted to move full time to working with business owners, working with people that I really wanted to work with, that I could grow. And so I found ProAdvisor Coach here in North Carolina, and that was back in 2018, 2017, and that's the journey I've been on since. And it's crazy how that's grown, across this time as well. But it's been a great experience to work with so many different businesses and apply all the things that I've learned in leadership. And so every day that I did that and continue to do that is the reminder that there are only so many principles and concepts of success. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. They always apply. Now, there's obviously nuances, best practices that apply to the specificity of those industries, but that baseline foundation is always the same.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I have a funny question for you. So, Did your wife let you coach her, since she's still in the financial industry, and you
ever coach your spouse?
That's a very clear answer. Really like that.
I've definitely had a few stop coaching me over the years. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. So, love unpacking the journey and hearing how, your own experiences have now become such powerful tools for you to help other people who are going through transition or who are trying to, like you said, level up their business success while also leveling up their health and their relationships, versus what many people do, a sacrifice, one for the other 2 or 2 for the other 1. So give us a snapshot now. I mean, you can reveal as much as you want, as much as you're comfortable, but I'm curious, what's a typical week like now? Are you doing a lot of one-on-one work? I know for sure you launched a group coaching program very successfully coming out of our accelerator time. So I'd love to just kind of hear, what does it look like this year for Nick and his business?
I mentioned briefly earlier that this is the beginning of this year. I've been the most excited about where my business is and where it's going because of the clarity, and back to the same, getting focused on, look, there's lots of people that we can all add value to, but we got to make sure that we know the people we can add the most value to and focus on them. And that's how we can create the biggest impact. And quite frankly, change the world. That's how we do it.
Yeah.
It's where we can add the most value, add that value, do that thing. So absolutely. Just actually finished the first cohort of the Accelerator Advisor under the 7-figure advisor banner here. And so the focus on that is really, really cool. And so as I look at the setup of my business, I still have a bunch of one-on-one clients, and I have the next group about to start, and I'm going to be creating a mastermind version of that as well, coming soon as well. And so being really specific with making sure that I'm focusing on serving these advisors. And what happens is there's so much, and you know this obviously, Dustin, but there's so much overlay of the relationships and the consolidations. One of the things that was really intriguing to me was again, a mindset around, hey, there's nothing more valuable than one-on-one, because you get my 100% attention. We can focus all the way of what is that you need, and we can get to the heart of those questions. And anything else I thought would be a somewhat dilution of that, right? So the mindset of going, okay, well, I can scale my business if I can add more people to that equation in the same place. But how can I do that in a place where I know it's diluting? And so that was my first mindset about it. Now, I still think that one-on-one is really powerful, but rather than a dilution, I realized the group is not a dilution at all. It's actually, it adds way more. And there's definitely a still place for one-on-one. It's a different thing. I shouldn't really be compared. And so what happens in a group, as you know, Dustin, very well, is that you get everything from the person that's the coach, the advisor, the facilitator, the consultant, whatever you want to phrase that. But you also get amplification, magnification from everyone else in the group as they share with where they are. And so it's especially powerful for me in my group, because everyone in the group is adjacent to each other, right? Like they're not quite the same, but they're close enough that they can all help each other. And there's so many things that they can share to move forward. So it's really powerful. I'm really excited about it. So as I move forward, the flywheel of those group programs will get faster and faster and faster. The machine, the engine of the business, with just providing more and more value to the advisor community. In fact, let me share this with you, because it's just been popping in my mind. I want to get it out there. It's like, okay, well, I think about the particular firm that I work most with, and they have about 4,000 advisors across the country. And it's like, I'm going to look it up. So I Googled how many financial advisors are there in the country. And Google says something like 300 and something thousand. So I thought, well, what if my 3-year target was, what if by April 2027, I could impact 100,000 advisors? And then I got scared. Then I got excited. Then I got scared and excited some more, and just sat with that for a few minutes, because by thinking like that, it changes your actions. It changes what you start to believe about what you would need to do in order to make that leap, to have that type of impact. And that's where I'm going.
And more importantly, who you need to be, right? I'm going through what it feels like another 10x leap. And I've talked on previous episodes about kind of the trajectory of my business. And this is actually fairly fresh. But, this idea that, I hit $1 million run rate in the Q1 of 2024, which was amazing. And there's this temptation to sort of think, cool, like I can just hang out here. And then there's an episode that probably got released just before this one with Ryan Dice. And we went pretty deep on this topic, because he's been through a lot of these shifts, and he's advised many people going through these shifts. And the true reality that there is no status quo, right? You're either growing or dying, and you've got to make that choice. And so one of the things I've been working on too, it's very similar to what you just shared, Nick, is the expanded vision. And for people that have been through this, they'll understand it. If you haven't, you'll understand it when you're in it. But it's this idea that like you get to a certain point with your business or your personal life and the different achievements, and then like this new horizon opens up, and it's like, oh, like I didn't think about this. And so I've been working diligently through this sort of identity work and mindset work around, okay, it's cool. Like I have $1 million coaching company. It's like, but what's next is actually a $10 million mastermind company, right? Like my unique gift is actually in the masterminding. Is I'm not really a coach, and it's never really felt like the right title or label for the work that I do. And I'm like, I'm really good at facilitating mastermind experiences and getting people rapid transformation through clarity and connection in that environment, including Nick. So I'm very proud to work with Nick. But it's like, what does it look like then to have the impact of a $10 million mastermind company, and not only what I need to do, but like who do I need to be, and who do I need to know, and who are the who's that would help empower that, and I have no like date for that. Is like that's not really the point. It's more like what do I need to be, what future self do I need to be stepping into to be able to like realize a bigger vision and have a bigger impact in the world. So very timely. It seems these conversations always happen at the right time. That you bring that up, because just just totally relate to it and love what you shared there about like when you, in a very practical sense, you can like Google like how many people in my specific thing that I serve
Right.
can I actually impact? And then like, man, what if I touched a fourth of them? It's like, that's a big number, but you know, why not? I mean, look what Tony Robbins has done as your original mentor in this space.
Yeah. Well, I think it's so powerful because we tend to resist it though, because, I couldn't do that. But it's what feels the best. To your point, we either grow or die. If we ask ourselves questions in our businesses, like, what business are we in? And if you've got more of a traditional type business, the answer tends to be that industry, like an accountant. So, well, what business are you really in? Well, I help people see their way to financial freedom through making sure that they are exactly where they need to be in a textile, but something where there's an emotional attachment to it, so you can realize what you're actually doing, what identity you're affecting, to your point. And then there's also the next question is, well, what business are you going to be in?
Mm-hmm.
Because you've got to be working on where are you going, and as you said, that's the identity. And so if you act like that identity, you'll realize that identity. And the word that I wrote down is back to that concept for me between the taking opportunities and creating the person that you want to be. So it's again, so one of the things I write down every day as part of like some affirmation work I do is just quite simply, I create. And I know that I always feel the best when I'm creating, when I'm moving towards something. It's the antidote for any of the head trash that comes in or anything that's happening. It's like if I'm moving forward, I'm creating something, I'm not looking at what's happening behind me or worrying about things that aren't exactly where I want to be. And so it's like that's the place that we always want to be in, I believe, in order that we keep going forward. Because, even if everything in your life is exactly the way you ever envisioned it, the best version of it possibly could be, the only way it remains anywhere near that is for you to keep creating, because by itself, it will get worse.
So it's really, again, funny timing. People are seeing the video. I'm just pulled up my notes app. So like literally this morning, as this is April 30th, 2024, if you go back and looked at my LinkedIn, I posted a LinkedIn post. I was revisiting The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And the quote that I centered my post on, and that is in this notes app that I'm holding up, that I wrote this less than 2 hours ago, was there is no competition. There's only the need to create. And he said this in 1956, before there were like creators and like the creator economy. But it's this idea that like, you really don't have competition. You're a creative being and you get to create the reality, right? Like you are the sum of your own thoughts. And I know that some of this stuff sounds a little woo-woo. Keep in mind, I'm like an engineer and a Christian. Like this is not woo-woo. This is like heavy emphasis in the Bible itself is about these ideas of you are what you think about. And we are creative beings. And I think as entrepreneurs, we're hyper creative beings. And when we get in a funk or we start feeling scarce, like you just said, it's perfect. Like the antidote to that is creation. And so that's why you got to keep growing, because how do you create if you stay static, right? You're not creating anything. And what ends up happening is you get burnt out, or you just burn the whole thing down and start something new because you have a innate desire and need to create. I love where we're kind of coming together on this in this moment with where you're at with your business, where I'm at with my business. And I'm sure where pretty much everyone listening to this is at. They're wrestling with some version of this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, well, am I moving towards the thing that I want, or am I staring at the thing I don't want? It's like stare at the thing that you don't want. The best you can do is just be okay with what you don't want. You still haven't got what you do want. It's just like turn around.
Wow,
go in the direction that you want. Yeah.
So I want to hear about. Well, we kind of just did it. So I want to talk kind of like how we just did the future casting, like, hey, where's this going? And I want to hear about some of the practical ways you're going to do that. And we're going to wrap up with Nick's thoughts on like really practically, like how do you actually do this stuff to make mindset shifts? But I want to share, this is just like a 1-minute personal anecdote. I think it speaks to Nick's character. It's also just a funny story. So he and I, one of the first Zoom meetings we had, I was remarking on his background. So if you're watching the video, you can see Arnold Schwarzenegger and you can see some other cool, just like really cool placards or whatever, like signs on his background. And somehow we talked about like, my son and I were hanging out and we were watching a UFC match, which is not something I've done a lot of, but he's pretty into it. And so I don't know. It seemed that was it, right? And then like a week later, we get this package, and I open it up, and I'm like, I thought it was Conor McGregor, and I open it up in a second. I'm like, damn it! Like I thought my son had basically took my credit card and bought this. Like it's cool, but I'm like, well, I didn't give him permission to buy this. I know he didn't buy it with his own money, so I hid it, and I'm like, I'm not giving this to him. Like he's not getting this thing he bought without my permission, and And there's like another week or two goes by, and Nick's like, "Hey, did you ever get the package I sent?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's like, is it Pedora? It's Dustin
Poirier.
Yeah. So again, I'm not like a super fan. And I'm like, oh, so Nick, in this like little, blip in our conversation, took the initiative to actually go buy my son, who's never met, this graphic of this UFC fighter. And so this was actually a gift from Nick to my son that I intercepted inadvertently and thought it was something it wasn't. So I bring this up now, Nick, because it's still hanging in his bedroom. That was, that was 6 months ago or something. So at the time that we're recording this, he's been gone for nearly over 3 months. In 2 weeks, we finally get to see him. He's going to graduate Army basic training.
Wow.
And when he left, he literally took a picture of that and printed it. And it was one of the very few possessions he took with him was the picture of that UFC fighter, because of the spirit behind it. And he knew he needed to have a warrior's attitude going into basic training. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you here, Nick, because again, it speaks to your generosity, the way that you care about people. And it really made a big impact in our son at a very pivotal time in his life as he was deciding his next steps. And you didn't know that when you did this, but I just wanted to share kind of a full circle moment with that.
Oh, it gives me chills, Dustin. That's so cool, man. That's so cool.
Here's the best part. They have 2 weeks left of basic training or 3 weeks. This week is hand grenades. Next week is combatives, which is literally like basically UFC fighting. They learn how to grapple and fight. And he's like so excited about it because he's always wanted to do like jujitsu and stuff. So he's probably going to get to live that out. He probably gets his butt kicked in the process, but he's going to have a lot of fun next week trying to channel his inner UFC fighter. So.
Very cool, man.
Thanks for letting me indulge the audience with that kind of funny story. But so yeah, I know we got at least two things we want to cover before we wrap up. One is your upcoming sabbatical. And then maybe from that, we can talk about, hey, if someone's just like, this stuff all sounds great, like it's kind of woo-woo, but like sounds pretty cool. How do I start to shift my mindset in like a very practical way? I'd love for you to touch on both those things if you don't mind.
Yeah, they tie together actually very well. So the what I would want to point people out to is that the tie between, as you said, what can feel like is woo-woo and I can't get my arms around it, tie it to something that is real and make it a representation of how you want to have your mindset, and therefore ultimately we can also use interchangeably mindset, beliefs, and identity. We move those around a little bit, so there's semantics there. But tie something external to how you think about something in order to show other people what you're doing, but most importantly, show yourself and live in the identity you want to live. And so this mini sabbatical, I'm calling it, I'm taking the whole of August off, is a way of creating more free time for me. Not vacation, although some of it is going to be vacation, but the concept is that like it's taking more free time. And if I have more free time, I can make more money in my business. Now that concept is what I share and work with my clients on, right? You've got to create space first such that you can make informed decisions, you can take massive leverage action to have the right people and put yourself in the right area and have the biggest visions in your outcomes. And so I share that all the time. And so this is me actually doing it. This is me saying, I'm living that for you as well, client. I'm doing it. I'm taking the time off. Oh, by the way, since you're in like my direct impact path, I'm not going to be there for a month. And so I'm going to be out and I'm still expecting you to pay me for a month, but I'm not going to be there. But with the concept of that, I want to be bold enough to say that my belief is so solid in this that I know it's going to I'm going to give you some tools and a way of living this experience with me through that process. But it's going to be even more valuable for you that I'm not there through that time, such that I'm going to move away. And then when I come back in September, it's going to be even more valuable for, again, you're going to get a double whammy, even though I'm not there. And so my commitment to that concept is what this is all about. And I'm going to spend the time, part of it I'm going to be in London seeing some family, going to be in Barcelona for a couple of days. And so I'm going to spend that month. You mentioned martial arts. I'm going to go back to doing some more martial arts every day. I'm going to learn Spanish. I'm going to do some stuff around the house, right? And build some things my wife wants me to do. That's what I'm going to do in that time. And so I'm not going to do any delivery work. I might do some focused thinking work, but I'm not going to do any delivery work. And so that's what I'm going to do. And leading up to that, I'm going to be sharing what I'm doing, why it's scary, why it's exciting, what anyone who is interested to follow along can do, and as part of that, and then through that period themselves, and take from it what you want, put the rest to a side. But that's the concept from it. And I am very excited. But I'm very scared, right? Because it is something that I'm putting out there, and we want to be bold, right? And if I think about something I learned from John Meese as well, who's been on the podcast, a good friend of yours, I know, of course, is that if you're having something that is really attracting something, you've got a magnet. A big part of testing whether that attracts something is whether it repels something as well.
Yeah.
And so that's such a great freeing frame to think about that. And so this is part of it. I'm really bold into a certain area, and some people won't get there and won't like that, but that's totally fine. And so that's that thinking process that's so important. And if I parlay that into what does that actually look like? How can we practice this ourselves? It's the thinking piece that's so important. And so we talked a little bit about vision and pushing yourself, and it's really challenging sometimes to do that, because it seems like, here's how I think about things. This is what I've worked in the past. So we tend to judge what we can do in the future based on what we can do in the past. But the past does not equal the future unless you live there, but most people do. And so this is the difference, right? So if your thinking patterns have allowed you to get to what you've got, by default, they're not going to get you to the place that you could get to. You're just going to get the same stuff again. And that's why, if I think about financial advisors, for example, all about numbers and measurements, they generally look at their production of their business by, I've grown 20%, I grow 15 to 20% each year. Nothing wrong with that. That's good numbers. But what if you thought about growing 100%? What would 100% look like? Who would you have to become? What would your business have to become in order that would get to that point? And just thinking like that changes the game. And so I like thinking of it like time is such an important thing, because pushing on adding more time to your day. I think most people that have some sort of level of success, Dustin, somewhere along the line had the framework of, look, someone told them, hey, if you want to be successful, work hard. But it comes the tension between, all right, lazy, work hard.
Yep.
And if you pick work hard, great, it means I'm not lazy. But that runs out. It runs out. And if you keep trying to work hard, there's no more hard to work.
I like that.
So the frame becomes hard work versus leverage. That's the place we need to be thinking about. So again, that's another example of what those two different mindsets are. And so how do we translate that to something that's real for us? So I think about, here's another way I think about it as well. If you've got a rocket, maybe not one of the Elon Musk rockets, but one of the old school ones with the big booster rockets on the side taking off. Those big booster rockets, like they need that huge amount of power, those extra rockets, extra boost, extra fuel to get off the launch pad, right? Most of the power is getting them off the launch pad, getting going, getting the momentum flowing.
Right.
Now, after a while, they get up to a certain point and they're going crazy. But what happens with those? What happens with those boosters? Like when they run out of fuel, what do they do with them, Dustin?
They dump them.
Dump them. Here's the question. What if they didn't? What if they got to a point where they're nearing the atmosphere, they're out of fuel, and they didn't dump those fuel canisters?
They would hold them back. They would drag them down. They would make it impossible for them to get to the outer rings of space, because they would become an impediment. Like what was a thing that served them to get to that point would now become an impediment and hold them back from the next stage.
And it probably crashing back down to earth, unless you have got an Elon Musk rocket that can land itself, and then you just do the whole process again, right? It's just over and over and over the same thing. And that's why people get to a certain level, can't get any further, and then come back down again and start again, and they bounce between those two things. And so it's like you've got to let go. Like that's the thing. It's like it's the very thing that got you to where you were. It's the very thing that's be the last thing in your mind that you'd let go of. Is the very thing that you need to let go of. It's not something else that I did something before. It's the very thing that you are holding on to right now. It's the scariest thing that there is. And so it's understanding where your thinking is in that place. And so
can I give another just really practical application of this? Because it's like literally what I'm doing right now. So I already explained kind of this visioning what could be possible, right? And like, what if this was a $10 million mastermind company? Like, what roles would I have to fill and not fill? Most importantly, not fill, right? Because actually, every time you level up your company or your life, you actually need to be doing less things, because you're going to do the really important things with a higher level of focus and quality. And so for me, like to get to the $1 million point in my business, I basically did everything. Like literally I have some VAs, but basically I did all the sales, all the fulfillment, leading every live call. Like that's what I've done. And so very scary to let go of some of that and say, well, I actually need to let other people do a lot of these roles. So I'm literally in this moment. So I made that decision. It's like you decide first, right? And then you commit to the new vision or the new identity, mindset, like you said, kind of interchangeable. And so for me, the practical application of that was like, I have to get out of my own way actually become a CEO of a company and not just like the founder doer of all things. And so I'm right now in like week 2 I hired a really high level fractional COO who's working with me over the next 3 months, leading into my own mini sabbatical in June when I'm taking my wife to Italy. And we're just getting the stuff going, like an org chart, and like, you don't have a project management system, you don't have like a CRM, like things that people would look at this and be like, that's insane. I'm like, yeah, I built it through like grit but I can't now. I got to let go of these rocket boosters, right? Like I had this fuel of emotion and vision and energy, and that got me to where I am. But it started to feel like it was dragging me down. Like I'm starting to feel burnt out. I'm starting to feel a little resentful of what I had built. And so the remedy, as you started with earlier, is new creation. So like, I don't really care honestly about any of the money stuff. Like we're doing great. Like it's not about that, but it's like for personal development and impact. And like I needed to commit to a new action. And for me, that was really focusing on operations for a full quarter. Like I'm not selling any new seats right now. It's like I'm just getting stuff ready for the next stage. So I really love that what you shared is exactly what I'm experiencing too. So
that's so cool, man. It's so cool because as soon as you make that, the quicker you can make the switch between that resentment, because that's how it really feels. Like it's the very thing that you were excited about before, now you resent it. And then you've got to take that immediately, go into that creation place, because the further you go down, the further you've got to come back up to zero to start again. It's like the deeper those foundations needs to be to build back out to it. But I mean, if we talked about the identity, which is the rolled up beliefs, and the beliefs themselves. Because if I think about the flow of what life is, it's beliefs or identity, and then from that you get your thinking, like because you think about what you believe, and beliefs come up in conversation and journaling and coaching, but thinking you can start to grab those throughout the day. And then thinking equals what we do, so our actions, and actions equals our results. Those two are external, and the results often we stop there, but really we want results because we want the quality of life we think that gives us, and we want that really because of a certain feeling. We want to feel fulfilled, we want to feel good, we want to feel like we've had impact. It's all about the feelings, and so if we can measure some of that stuff, is really powerful. And this is what I wanted to share as an offering to everyone who's watching and listening, is that I have a really cool tool which can measure some of those thoughts. And so it's a really cool tool. I mean, there's lots of great assessment tools out there. This one's been around since the 70s, and the guy that created it was actually nominated for a Nobel Prize back in the late 70s before he passed. But it's really powerful because it's based on mathematics and have some clarity around what our thought processes and patterns are. And it's almost like an early warning system, right? It's like if I can know where my thinking is, yes, I can figure out what I believe sometimes, but that work's kind of hit or miss, and that's why it's such a challenging piece of work. That's why it's like most people want to push it away because it's a lot of work. But if you can measure some of those thoughts, you can front load, okay, what am I going to do? Therefore, what am I going to get and how am I going to feel? So I wanted to offer that for anyone who is interested in taking that. They can go to coachnickmindscan.com, coachnickmindscan.com.
That's awesome. And I know of this tool because I took this the mind scan, and really importantly, Nick then unpacked it with me, and it was like super insightful. It was actually a big part of some of these transformations that I started to make last year. How the world works. Nick hires me, and then he serves me right back, and he unlocks a lot of things for me. Sure. And I mean that's the power of having great people in your life. But I would highly encourage. This is not something that's typically free. Like it literally does cost money to go take this, but Nick's, got some ownership of it. So he's able to offer this to the listeners. So coachnickmindscan.com, just to be real clear for people. So go to that and absolutely take advantage of it. It's an awesome tool. I'm sure you're going to get a lot of results immediately from it. And then if you want, I'm sure Nick can help you unpack it and really get maximum insight from it. But yeah, the starting point is to go check out the MindScan tool for yourself.
Go take it. And so I'll say the first 5 people that take it, I'll be more than happy to unpack that, give them a free coaching session and really tie it into, because the key piece, of course, is tying these two things together. To go back to what we said earlier on, it's taking that stuff that is woo-woo, but taking that to the outside and the external and actually tying it to something that you actually want and result and something that you can see in the physical world.
I love that. It doesn't get much more practical than this, because it's literally like taking your thinking and, like you said, it's math. It's like math, right? It's like algorithms. So it's math and science. And so it gives you a very quantitative look at what feels very qualitative and loose. And so, I love it. So Coach Nick, mindscan.com. That's very generous of you. And definitely go do it as soon as you hear this, so that you can get some help from Nick if you're one of the first 5 before he's gone on sabbatical and running around Barcelona and London. So, well, Nick, this is amazing. You're a great friend, a great resource. Really blessed to have you in our mastermind community and get to hang out with you on a regular basis and learn from you and just observe what you do. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Dustin. Right back to you. Same thing. I really appreciate being part of your world, and I know there's going to be many, many more things to come. So
absolutely. Excited. Yeah. And if you guys are listening and you're like, hey, I'd like to get into this world and experience what a mastermind is like, our entry point to that is the Podcast Profits Accelerator, of which Nick is an alumni. And it's basically an immersive 90-day experience where you come in, you get to be in a mastermind with a lot of really cool people, get maximum clarity. And we actually use podcast guesting, what Nick's doing here with me, as the vehicle to help you get this clarity about your business, your offers, and just really grow your business in a fast way through the power of relationship building at scale as a podcast guest. So if you're interested in that, you can just simply go to 7figureleap.com and click the button right there, and we'll get a free consultation for you and just talk about what this is like and if it would be a good fit for you and your business. And we'd love to be able to serve you in that way. So thanks again, everyone, for listening. Can't wait to see you on the next episode of the 7-Figure Leap podcast. Make sure you go check out CoachNickMindscan.com and get your free resource, and we'll catch you on the next one.